You're listening to Adamantly Analog, episode 71. This week, we're talking about 2nd edition board games and Magical Athlete.
Hello and welcome to Adamantly Analog, the only board gaming podcast to be talked about more on the playground than a 1st edition foil Charizard Pokemon card. Yeah, we're just that hot. I'm your host, Harrison Dunn.
Are the elementary school kids in a podcast these days?
I'm probably. Why not?
I think they're more of the YouTube generation, but I'm your host, Corey Murphy.
We're on YouTube, so come on, Charizard kids, get with the program.
Yeah. Oh, the Charizard kids are probably looking at what's that website where they just watch people open packs of trading cards? Whatnot? You ever seen that?
I assumed you were just making a joke about YouTube again.
No, it's a real thing. It's a big deal. Yeah, and people will open Pokemon card packs and sports card packs and stuff, and basically it's just videos of them opening them and then just going bonkers when they get some super rare foil something or other.
I wonder if there's a scene to do that with opening board games, except just be like, oh man, it's the same thing as last time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Last week we said we would talk about 2nd editions this week, and I think we should probably do that because that's what we said we were going to do.
Oh, okay. So, I thought you were going to change it up on me the way you said that. It's like, this is what I prepared for. Okay, cool.
Yep. What all you listeners back listening at home don't know is that this is the second time we've recorded this episode because the first time didn't take. So this is the 2nd edition of this podcast. And is that true? I'll never tell.
The world may never know.
May never know.
I have to say, the 2nd edition thing, when we thought of it initially, I was like, oh, there's so many of them that I can think of. But I approached it from the perspective of wanting to share the big changes that were made in the 2nd edition games. And so I can't talk about Ra because it's functionally the exact same game. It's just like way better looking. But I have a list. I have a good list. After doing some research, I've been watching videos all afternoon and just like racking my brain for the things that were improved in a 2nd edition. So that's kind of where my focus is. I don't know if you necessarily took the same thing.
Yeah, I took it as let's talk about 2nd editions that try to stay true to the original game. And I specifically ruled out rethemes and things that added big mechanical changes. So, reprints with a new coat of paint instead of like Twilight Imperium editions, which are functionally new games, right? Those are like brand new experiences. So, yeah. But we both agreed that we would not be talking about Castles of Burgundy.
Right.
Because we have a habit of doing that.
We talk about that game a lot. And by talking about not talking about it, we are talking about it. So success or failure, that's for you to decide.
Yep. It's like the Bechdel test fails the Bechdel test.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
So hey, Corey, what you been playing?
I had a game day on Saturday. And I finally got to live out the dream of, remember our smell episode where we wanted to pair the combat games with the smell of pizza?
I have fond memories of our smell episode, Corey.
Well, we did it in real life. After talking about that, I was just dreaming about this game day where we ordered the greasiest pizza around. So we got Jet's Detroit style pizza, which is extra greasy. And we played a game of Arcs. And like I've said many times before, we have played it once before with this particular group. I've played it once before that. I am so confused on what to think of this game. But ultimately, the game day resulted in me posting it for sale on Facebook Marketplace.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, we didn't even make it through. Yeah, here's the thing about Arcs. I can respect what it's doing, and I think I like it, but my group detests it. And it is so mean and swingy that it was just the feel bads were abundant. And I said, guys, we don't really have to finish this game. So we wrapped it up quick and played a game of Raw, speaking of. And that was a much better experience for us.
Wow.
And this is not a group that's averse to combat games. We play combat games all the time. This is just that game is pretty polarizing. So I'll say this, if you're interested in playing arcs or buying arcs, I would encourage you to do your research on the rules and how they work out because there is a pretty brutal rating system in this game where you can just completely neuter a player's setup. I think it's good in terms of like making things interactive, but it really hurts. It feels pretty awful when you get your whole setup ravaged.
Yeah. I that part I don't even I didn't even remember. I just remember like the core feeling from the rest of the game, and I still think that it's like a solid design, and I
Yeah,
think that there are people who are going to love it if they play it all the time. Like I think a lot of leader
exactly.
games wants that. They want the players like that. They want this to be the go-to game for some group. Uh, but unfortunately, like the deeper you get into the hobby, the more like those kind of games you want to get to the table, and thus none of them work out that way.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it because again, I also respect the design. I think it's cool. I think it's unique. I think it does some cool things, but I have a really hard time seeing how the card play element of it can be better with more experience because some hands you're dealt and they just feel terrible. Like you don't get dealt the action card that you need, so you're left with just taking a single action as kind of like a follow. There's like this follow
Hmm.
mechanic in the game. It's far inferior to just leading with a low value card and having a bunch of action pips on it. So
Right.
without going into the rules, it's just like there's some major randomness that you have to sort of maneuver around, and I think you can do that with some experience, but it can't be an effective way to win the game. It's like I think luck is a big variable here.
Right. Right. A lot of games are like that, especially the one I'm about to talk about. But with the level of strategy and like stuff that a game like Arcs kind of emits, you want to have more control than it often gives you.
That and I'm like picturing a graph in my head where like one axis is luck and the other axis is time played. And if the
Hmm.
game is like 15 minutes, I can tolerate luck. But if the game goes like an hour and a half to like this one took us like 3 hours to play, the luck feels way worse when it doesn't go your way. So I'm personally not a person that is too triggered by that, but I can totally understand those that are. Like I enjoy playing the
Yeah.
game even if I'm getting my butt kicked. But I get it. I mean, it's tough. But speaking of, what's your lucky game?
Well, you sent me a message on the old Discord that I should check out Magical Athlete from CMYK, the recent Richard Garfield roll to move game. And how did you describe it? You described it as,
It just looks like a Harrison game.
yeah, this looks like a Harrison game. So I took that to mean, Harrison, you need to play this as soon as possible because I think you're gonna love it. Um, I read between like the lines of your one line of text. Uh, I tried real hard there, but somebody brought it to game night last night, and I was like, "Ooh, I need to play that. Let me finish scoring this 5-player games of Foundations of Rome,
Mm,
and then let me jump into that." Unfortunately, the rules teach for Magical Athlete like it takes longer to read the cards that you're drafting from than it does to teach the rules of the game. It
oh,
is you draft 4 racers, and then you do 4 races, and in a race you pick a racer and then you just roll the dice and see what happens. It very much in the vein of what feels like these uh high luck, almost auto battler style games. Like it feels like it's in that spiritual family. um but I can't figure out why I was so okay with making effectively one decision per round, and then just watching it unfold.
mm.
Did you play this when you recommended it, or did you just see it?
No, I just came across it and I read about it a little bit and I was like, that just seems up your alley. So,
It is super wild. Uh, so yeah, you pick a character, and your characters have like one line of text on them, one rule that just changes how the game goes. Um, and that's pretty much it. The whole thing is you just roll a 6-sided die and move that number of spaces. And I my first game I had a power that said I pick who I think is going to win. If that player comes in first place, I instantly get second place and the race is over. was like, okay, cool. That is an easy brainer power. I'm just gonna do it. I picked the player who I thought had the strongest power. I was wrong.
Mm.
I got nothing in the first round. Um, Second round, you flip the board over, and now on the back side of the board, there's a whole bunch of these weird spaces, like spaces that give you a point if you land on them, and spaces that trip you if you land on them. Tripping, you
Mm.
just knock your piece over, and then your next turn you have to stand up instead of moving. And
Hmm.
that round was like, we've played a six-player game. We laughed so hard at just the ridiculous situations that kept happening. So I was playing a character, Baba Yaga, the house with legs. So it's this cartoon. If you haven't seen the graphics or the art for this game, it is like old 80s cartoons. Like it looks
Yes.
it looks kind of
Schoolhouse Rock.
like garbage, but it is a vibe. So I was this really weird cartoon Baba Yaga, and my ability was, if someone lands on my space or I land on their space, I trip them. And the thing about this game is everything counts as a move. So other players' abilities that move players also count for this. And we were playing with another player's power who was, at the start of the turn, just move any player to your space. So
Oh.
he would land on me, and then pull someone else to my space and trip them. Like, so not only did he pull the leader back, but he also knocked them down. Or he was falling behind, but there were two people on his space. He pulled me back to them and knocked all of them down. Like, it was just pure chaos. Like that race took 4 or 5 times longer than the first one did, just because there was so much shenanigans with powers going on. Um, I think the game comes with like 30 or 40 of these characters. Um, we drafted four each in a six-player game. We only saw like half the deck. It is just bonkers. Each one has their own little mini too that you can use on the board. That's a little like a screen printed meeple thing. Really nice production, despite the weird art. It kind of grew on me. I like it. And then the whole thing is eco-friendly too. It comes packaged with these little like almost paper sack lunch bags that you put all the pieces in and the cards and stuff afterwards. No plastic in the whole thing. So it was really cool. I enjoyed it. So you are correct. This looks like a Harrison game. It was definitely a Harrison game.
Points.
Yep. It
Um,
is it's very weird. Like challengers, you're making so few decisions. It is largely luck, but the wackiness that ensues is just a fun thing to gather around.
so is there only one card per character? That's all you're
Hmm.
deciding
Yep.
between? So then
Yep.
you're managing one card and then just moving these characters around the board for each round, right?
The card is a rule. That's it. The card is a picture of your character and the rule for that character.
And then just
So
a
you're not
bunch of
even like
dice.
managing it. It's just in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and Harrison is speaking. You sound a little lukewarm on the art, but I, on the other hand, am jazzed about this. It looks really awesome. It's like a more psychedelic schoolhouse rock, if that makes any sense. And yeah, there's
It's
like the Baba
weird,
Yaga.
but there are a couple pieces that just tickle me. Like there's a character called, like, I think it's the Scoocher, and it, it's a dog
Oh god,
dragging its butt
let's play
across the
this.
ground, and its power is just whenever another player's power activates, you move one space. It was
That's so
it
awesome.
was
Okay,
perfect. It was
I have to
great.
play
It
this.
was great.
What's
Or
what's this giant baby doing?
oh, no,
It's
no, no,
like
sorry.
twice as thick as the others.
That's Huge Baby. I think
Okay,
that's what it's called, Huge Baby, and his power is, he cannot share a space with another piece. So if somebody
okay,
lands on you, they instead go behind you.
that's
Um,
amazing.
it's just yeah, it's Huge Baby. There's Stickler. Stickler is you can't finish the race unless you roll the exact number to get on the over the finish line. It's goofy. The whole thing, like, there's 30, 40 of these characters. It is excellent. Definitely like a dumb fun party game,
Yeah.
and it works super well. So it might not be up your alley, but I would recommend trying it if you have the chance at least.
Okay, I gotta try it. This is a re-implementation of an older game. I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but looks like it came out in 2003 to Z-Man, and it has like this kind of Studio Ghibli art on it, but nowhere near as fun as the new. version of it with all these
Oh,
meeples. That's really cool.
I did not know that. Huh. Interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This looks not nearly as fun.
Uh,
It uses cardboard standees.
yeah. I think in the BGG rating is significantly different between the two. So I don't know how much is Cult of the New and how much is just the production, but I don't expect a game that has like as much randomness as you're describing to be highly rated, but that doesn't mean it can't be fun still. I think
Right.
this one sounds like a lot of fun.
Okay. So then, yeah, it is worth saying that it's. I said it was designed by Richard Garfield at the start, but it's actually co-designed by Richard Garfield and the original designer, Takashi Ishida.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Awesome.
cool. Yeah. Nice call out. Glad I got to try it.
Harrison, I think we need to play a little sub game just in the Adamantly Analog cinematic universe where
Okay.
we make recommendations to each other, and if we're right, we get a point. Can we track this over the course of this entire show?
Corey, I recommend that you play Kemet.
Oh, I don't think that counts because I have played Kemet, but we don't have
Okay.
to start. I'm not going to start with 1 point on this, but this inspired the idea.
Okay.
So
Okay.
moving forward, okay. Moving forward. You recommended I played Challengers, and I really did like Challengers, so I would have given
Okay.
you a point for that one.
You calling out that magical athlete existed in 2003 means that magical athlete's technically a second edition, isn't it?
Ooh, yeah, okay.
Oh, hey, let's talk about some second editions. All right, so today's episode topic is second editions, talking about games that with a second edition. So, Corey, I'm gonna say that we do a little twist on our first player rule here. Okay, let's
Okay.
decide the second player rule for second edition. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right. And my very clever rule is the player to most recently have gone second.
Oh, boy. I don't track these things in my BGG app, so let's see if I can remember. Let me pull up my recently played games and kind of put
I know.
myself back in that setting. Do you remember?
I went last in Foundations of Rome. I remember starting with more money, and then I
Okay.
also learned how to play Planet Unknown. And I did go second in that. I was the second in the draft order,
Okay,
or
then
the first player order.
it's gotta be you because I'm looking back, and I actually have Planet Unknown in my recently played as well. I played that game solo. It's actually a great solo game.
Oh.
But, I can't remember the last time I went second, so you win.
Okay, cool. Well, I win the second player rule, so you go first.
All right, awesome. Second editions. So, Harrison, as we described at the start of this episode, we had a different approach to this list, and that is going to show itself immediately in my first pick because For the King and Me from 2021 is the yellow second edition or reprint of Biblios. And obviously, we have a completely different theme because Biblios is this kind of bizarre monk reading a book theme, which to me personally doesn't sound all that intriguing and kind of kept me away from the game for a while. It took Mark Basada of Board Game Barrage, who's appeared on our podcast, recommending this game over and over and over again. It's almost become a meme for him, for me to try it. And so I played Biblios at a convention. I was like, oh, this game is actually pretty sweet. It's this cool little fast paced drafting and bidding game that is, I mean, you can teach it in like 5 minutes. It's maybe a 20-minute game to play, highly interactive. It involves trying to win the majority of the values in each of 5 different suits. The suits are just colored cards with numbers on them. And you do that obviously by drafting and bidding. Okay. And then the point values you get for each of those suits for winning those majorities is different based on how you affect the dice associated with those suits. So they all start at like kind of a base point value, and then you can increase and decrease depending on which ones you think other players have. You'd want to decrease those and increase the ones you have without giving away what you're holding on to. So there's a lot of really clever design choices in this game, and it all comes down to this very like concise and simple package that I think is really well executed. The theme, it kind of, like I said, it turned me off. I think it probably turns many people off. But even bigger problem is that the availability of this game is like it doesn't exist. It's not in print anymore. It's really hard to find. So I actually got on the BGB Discord at one point. I was like, "So what's the rule on, doing your own makeshift version of it since you can't get it anywhere?" And they're like, "Oh, just go buy For the King and Me." I had no idea it was the same game. But it is just basically a second edition of Biblios. It allows for 5 players to play the game, which I think is a really obvious change because this is, to me, kind of like a filler or party game for large groups. And it is a completely secular theme compared to the Biblios thing. It's like kings and knights and stuff, and they have this kind of comic-like artwork to them. And that's really it. I mean, it's a very simple update to it. The rules have basically stayed exactly the same otherwise. The components are different. It still fits in a nice little box. I missed the dice that existed in Biblios. Instead, there's like these little point banners on the nobles that you're trying to influence in this case. And they've also added like a second place, like a consolation prize that didn't exist in Biblios. So it's a little more forgiving if you go for a suit and you don't win that suit. I think that's probably better when you have larger player counts. But For the King and Me is my first pick for second edition.
Yeah. You bring up a great point about that, and that I think that's the biggest thing about any second edition is that it usually just makes the game available again.
Hmm.
If a game is popular enough to warrant a second edition, um, that's more than a reprint. That's a hey, people love this game, people are demanding this game. Let's do it again, but taking their feedback and give it some new theme, update old looking artwork, make it available again, and it's just all usually pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know how like the rights to these kinds of things work as far as the publishers go. But like with Glory to Rome, that game is very sought after. It's completely out of print. That one's never getting a reprint because there's this conflict between, I think it's the designers. They just are not willing to
Mhm.
go back and do it again. So there's no like true reprint or second edition offered for it. But Carl Chudyk is always doing like iterations on those ideas in his games. So I mean, this one is just like a pure like this is almost exactly the same game with some slight updates. So
Yeah,
figured that needed to be represented on this list.
for sure. Yep, good pick. Good pick.
And that is For the King and Me 2021 from Yellow.
You have For the King of Me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I I've played like Biblios like once or twice, and I was just lukewarm on it.
Yeah.
So I should try it again. But
It
all
might
right.
help. I played it with a group of guys that was like really excited about it. And, that changes your experience a little bit.
Yeah.
And so as soon as I saw this one for $15 on Amazon, I was like, how do I say no to that? So now I own it.
It's putting money in Jeff Bezos' pocket. That's how you say
Yeah, I
no.
know. Well, yeah.
Uh,
Aside from Yellow.
all right. Uh, so my first pick is a very popular game that received a second edition. And there was a lot of hullabaloo around the second edition because it is such like a popular game. And that is Seven Wonders from Repos Production. They did a reprint and second edition with gorgeous new artwork and kind of updated graphic design, nice shiny box, and it was really pretty. Um, and I was involved I participated in like their marketing campaign as a consumer. And I like this was they did like some sort of quiz and puzzle thing that you could solve online, and ended up winning a free copy of the game. And I was like, oh man, this is super cool.
Nice.
And then we get to the part, the dark side, the darker side of second editions, because
Oh,
I own Seven Wonders and almost every expansion. And when I got this new second edition at home and opened it up, and I was like, oh, I can't use any of my stuff with this.
oh no.
Yeah, they have different card backs. I think the card size is a little different too. The tokens are different. It's just
Mhm.
it's not compatible. So I wanted to pick Seven Wonders because like this is still an incredible game. This is still a super good thing, and I'm happy that they made a new version of it to make it all more accessible because they also reprinted uh, the expansions with this new graphic design, and I think they incorporated cities and leaders and one other expansion I think into one like box to make it a little more easy to carry around.
Mhm.
Um, Overall, good stuff for getting new people into it, but for someone who had already had all of it, like it didn't make sense to oh yes, I got a free copy of the base game, but I'm not going to go out and buy all the expansions that I already have. Um, so I ended up getting rid of that one. But uh, this is a great example of like a cool new version, but with a downside for people who are already invested in it.
I always forget how much I love Seven Wonders until I start talking about it or looking at pictures of it. It's a great game. It's
It's
one of
good, yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic that really deserves its place in the halls of history of board games. It
Now,
and
have you
yeah.
played Seven Wonders Architects?
Yes, I don't like it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to say.
I thought it was neat. It was uh, so Seven Wonders is the classic card drafting game. You have a hand of 7 cards, you pick one and you're building your wonders. Seven Wonders Architects is like the Seven Wonders reimagined as a my first version of the game, but without explicitly saying my first.
Mhm.
It is very very simplified drafting. Basically, you have a face up deck that sits between the players to you and your left and your right, and on your turn, you just draw one of them and add it to your tableau, and that's it. So it has the feeling of like tactical drafting, but between the table, but it's so much quicker. Um, Even though you're not doing simultaneous picks, it just feels so much snappier. So anyway, that's not my pick. Seven Wonders second edition from 2020 in Repost production.
Yeah. You bring up a good point with the expansions. Um, that's that's kind of a shame. I almost feel like that's a little grubby in some ways because it could have easily been solved by even just merely keeping the cards the same size because people sleeve them so often. I'm looking at pictures of this one, and it doesn't look like the graphic design is really all that different. And I'm seeing a lot of the same art from the original version of it too. So it's like, is it a needed? Are there updates to the rules, or is it mostly just that? It's just cosmetic.
I think it's mostly a cosmetic thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah, 'cause same publisher. It was Repos originally too.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Huh. I always wondered about that. Okay. All right, cool. To my second game, it's weird. Harrison recommended this to me about 10 minutes ago, and it's already made my list. Kemet, Blood and Sand. Let's just say I played this one a time or two. Um, Kemet, Blood and Sand is the 2021 second edition version of Kemet, which was just called Kemet. And I have some mixed feelings on this one too, but obviously it made my list, so I do like it. This is the version I have. Kemet is the big dudes on a map, aggressive combat game. There's a lot of attacking. You're incentivized to attack because you get points for attacking, and you don't win points for defending in battles. I mean, that's to say, if you win a battle as a defender, you don't get points. There's a lot of kind of temporary points in this game that you get by holding control of certain spaces with temples in them. And the game is all about just kind of playing king of the hill in those spots. You have a limited amount of troops that you're kind of pushing around the map, and when you max out of the troops that you've deployed, you don't get to put any more out. So your ability to like turtle and hold a bunch of locations is very limited by that. And then, of course, the big feature with Kemet and the biggest, most notable change here for the expansion, in my eyes, is there are a bunch of tech tiles in both editions of the game, and you add new abilities. They can be subtle things like, you get a +1 movement when you take a move action, or they can be big things like there's a monster attached to this tile, and you get to deploy that monster, and it has a special ability. And there's tons of them. You're looking at, I think it's 16 for each color pyramid, which you're going to play with 3 different color pyramids each time. And so you're dealing with a lot of individual pieces of information. And the original version of the game doesn't have a good way of first passing those around the table, or second representing those in some kind of piece of, like it's almost like a rule book that is used to show these and describe what they do. There was one single copy of that, and all those tiles were just like free floating. They would just kind of, you'd have to set them up on the table and walk over and pick them up when you needed them. That seems like a pretty big problem for a game that has
Yep.
a lot of decisions to make. So Blood and Sand involves some trays that these tiles sit in, and each player gets their own menu basically to look at. So what happens? A lot of players spend much of the game kind of just reading through that menu and deciding how they're going to build their faction out. But that's kind of also the fun of the game. So I want to encourage them to be able to do that with the right information, and not feel rushed. There are a lot of rule changes to this one too, mostly pretty subtle things. The biggest one being that when you are in a battle as a defender or when you lose a battle, there's some incentives to that too. They aren't as good as winning a victory point, but you get these veteran tokens that can be cashed in for, other prizes later on in the turns. There's a bunch of rules changes with the tiles, kind of mostly rebalancing things. And then overall, just like the look of this game is completely kind of updated. The board looks different. A lot of the monsters look different. The minis are larger. Um, things like that. It is very much a product of the Kickstarter era, and that again feels a little grubby, like I said in the last one, because there's a whole section of the board that you don't get to use until you've bought an expansion that hadn't even come out
Oh,
in the first like year of this
no.
game's existence. But it is a great game. It's one of my top 10 for a good reason.
Yeah. When you taught me how to play this, did we play Blood and Sand or was that the original version?
That was the original version.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely remember the large tray of things. And I thought you handled the teach pretty well of like kind of slowly onboarding us to like what we needed to pay attention to, but
Hmm.
it is a big chore.
Yeah, I bought some like aftermarket sleeves to put those tiles in, so I don't remember if you had those or not, but they're kind of necessary.
Yeah.
And then photocopied a bunch of rule books. The rules are notoriously bad in the original version, and they didn't get too much better in the second version. There's like a lot of typos. Madigo is a French company, and they do a good job of representing different languages in their books, but not to great success sometimes.
Hmm.
All right, so that is Kemet, Blood and Sand.
All right. My second pick is another second edition that actually it has a third edition now, which I just learned while researching for this episode, and that is Kingsburg. So Kingsburg is a Euro dice dice worker games sort of ish. You're rolling a bunch of dice and then you're placing them on a shared board where the sum of the dice that you place is equal to the strength of the action that you want to take. And the this board has numbers 1 through 18 on it that you're placing dice onto to take actions that represent different uh, uh, feudal characters, like down all the way down from the fool up to minor uh, Baker, I think, is in there, then Knight and General, and all the way up to the Prince, King, Queen, and things like that. I'm probably making some of those up. Um,
Stuff like that.
but then you're using the resources and the goods you get from that to build up your own little board, which is just a giant spreadsheet of abilities and buildings, and trying to prepare for an oncoming invasion of baddies. Um, I recently replayed this game, and I'm a little bit less hot on it than I was originally. But I still enjoy it. I think it plays better at a lower player count just because there is so much to take in. Um, but anyway, so I wanted to pick up this version because there's good and bad with each edition. So the second edition actually does something that is common in second editions, is to incorporate like expansions from the original printing as part of that new base game, and that's exactly what Kingsburg does for first edition to second edition, and I think they maintain that through to the third edition. Um, but they completely change the artwork each time too, and the
Mm,
graphic design. And there's a general consensus that like there's no one good version of Kingsburg at this point. Like the first one was like pretty good art, but the components were kind of junky. And then the second one, the art people like generally don't like it, but the components are really, really nice. And then this apparently this third edition is like kind of a mixed bag. Like they feel like the components went down, art got better, but still not as good as the first. Um, so it's interesting to see like different takes on an edition not always be perceived as a good thing
mhm.
in different people's eyes. Like, yes, it's good to get a new version, but some people recommend, hey, go try to find the second edition because of these reasons. And it all comes down to personal taste.
Yeah.
In a hobby where the secondary market is a very present thing, especially for those that are deeply invested, like it's nice to have that opportunity to have a bit of a choice. Or maybe it's frustrating because you're trying to track down a specific edition and maybe dealing with people who don't know or don't care, or just don't want to give up their version of it because they think it's the best one. Um, so yeah, it's an interesting space for second editions for sure.
Speaking of the third edition, I didn't know that existed either. But looking at it, it is very much a simplified version of the game as far as the art and graphic design goes.
Hmm.
It's a lot of gray, just kind of plain gray backgrounds, and everything seems smaller too. Like it's intentionally made to take up less table space, perhaps.
Yeah.
Um, Almost like this kind of narrowing down of bits and simplifying of art is this kind of like maturing of this game. Like older players will see themselves playing this one versus the very artistic representations of the medieval imagery, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if that's what they're going for, but that's how I feel they're approaching it. Because I'm looking at the first edition of the game, and it seems like the imagination is just slipping away in each edition. 'Cause the first one is beautiful. There's so much going on the board. It's really cool to look at.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's definitely evolves in an interesting way.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's also a factor of the time, right? So Kingsburg first edition came out in 2007. Second edition is 2017. And then they didn't wait the full 10 years. They did third edition in 2024. Um, so those versions are very different. I've played both the first and the second. I have the first edition, and then we have a copy of the second edition at work. So we've played that one before. And yeah, it's I I I don't know which one is better. I really like the dice in the second edition. They're like these custom dice with cool patterns on them. They're a little hard to read from a distance, but really you don't need to know that from a distance as much. They're right in front of you.
Hmm. I have to say this because you reminded me the whole thing about adding expansion content into the reprints. That's a thing for Kemet Blood and Sand. So if you're using this podcast to determine which one of those editions you want, Black Pyramids are included in the new version of Kemet, and they are definitely worth having. Big add to the game. Okay, sorry, done. Back to Kingsburg. Just needed to mention that.
Yeah. Nope. No, that's it on Kingsburg. So I don't have a strong recommendation on which one to get. If you've not tried it before and you're interested in it, I would say any of them is a good way to at least get your foot in the door. Don't let us snobby board game folks who complain about edition differences prevent you from having a good time.
Right. We do a board game podcast. It's our duty.
You said duty.
Yeah. All right. My third and final pick is Great Western Trail Second Edition. I originally had an Egypt theme with mine. I was doing Amun Re, Ra, and Kemet, Blood and Sand. I explained why I didn't want to do Ra, despite it being a great reprint. So I ended up actually doing a 2021 theme on accident. So all three of my reprints, or second editions, I should say, came out in 2021. Great Western Trail is an amazing game that somehow managed to overcome its unusual box art in its first edition. People are constantly complaining about the scary cowboys on the cover of that game. Personally, I don't find it that big of a deal. I think it's kind of cool looking, but I know that's always the topic of conversation surrounding that version of the game. Harrison's described this before as fancy Monopoly or something to that extent, right?
Yeah, it's fancy Monopoly deck builder.
Deck builder, yeah. Now you don't roll a die to move. You move, 1 to 3 spaces, but you are going through a circuit. You're kind of, kind of rounding the board in some ways, even though you're not going in a round circuit. It's just get to the end, go back to the start. And as you do, the spaces are kind of building out, and different players are controlling those spaces in different ways. And so, like I've always said, it's a really cool way to sort of like rehearse this circuit and build upon, the plan that you make as you pass through it, because you're gonna go through that path like 4 or 5 times throughout the game. Of course, there's cows. There's a lot of cow cards, and those cow cards are the deck building element of it. I think deck building is kind of not the right descriptor for what's happening in this game, but you are adding them to the deck and
Yeah.
redrawing when you end up filling your discard pile. But that's the mechanic that allows you to basically activate some of the abilities throughout that circuit, as well as when you get to the end of the line, you can ship the highest value cows of different suits, different types, I should say, um, and earn points based on how far you can go down a kind of like a point track, basically trying to ship them all the way to New York in the second edition. Okay, big changes with this one. First of all, art, graphic design is a big change. The cover art is improved, and there is a whole new, like basically different looks for all of the different types of characters that represent female characters as well as African American characters, and I think people really resonated with that. Even the meeples are different skin tones and have little tiny cowboy hats that you can kind of mix and match to put on their heads, which is a fun and completely unnecessary addition to the game.
Nice.
But not unnecessary is the dual layer player boards, which in many games is a little superfluous. In this game, it is very important because there's a lot of little bits that you're constantly slotting in and out of your personal player board, and so it works really well in this game. Whereas in the original version, you could bump that and cause some major chaos. Again, some of the expansion content is added. There is a thing called the exchange token, and the exchange token allows you to kind of discard and redraw to kind of basically to balance out some of the variance that happens with the cow deck draws. And then there is an additional cow included that you can or cannot include in your games. It's called the Cemental cows. They're orange, and they start off as like a two value cow, and then they get larger and larger throughout the course of the game as you get to the end of the circuit with them. So lots of little minor things that add up to a big change, and this one is truly a big improvement on the original version of Great Western Trail. It happens to be the one that's much easier to acquire these days.
Yeah, the Great Western Trail extended universe where you can now
Yeah, right.
ship cows or sheep in one of them, I think.
Yep. Yeah,
Yep.
no, the Australian one is sheep. I don't know what the other one is. Maybe goats. I don't know.
There's let's see here. Let's see. We've got Great Western Trail, Argentina, El Paso, and New Zealand.
Oh, so there's
And
four of them.
I think you said that El Paso's sort of like the simpler version.
Oh,
It's
right,
supposed
right.
to
Yes, yes, it is El Paso. Thank you.
yeah, that's
Uh,
supposed to be like the easier to learn version. Uh Argentina looks like it's still cows, but it's in Argentina. And then the New Zealand one is sheep.
hmm Cool. So that is Great Western Trail, second edition.
All right. My final pick is one of the very, very first games that I got into when I got into the hobby board games, and it was very difficult to find because the company that originally published it lost the rights to it when Renegade Games sprung out from Cryptozoic. So originally published by Cryptozoic Games is Gravwell, Escape from the Ninth Dimension, and it has since been republished by Renegade Games in 2021 as simply Gravwell. You don't have to remember to escape from the ninth dimension. It's just kind of baked into it.
Yeah.
Um, so this is a card drafting racing game, sort of. You're drafting these cards and then simultaneously revealing from the cards that you've drafted to hopefully slingshot yourself out of a black hole by manipulating gravity of the other players relative to you. So you're trying to pick cards that let you act before other players or shoot you in the right direction, and if you can anticipate other players' moves. Um, it's a little bit thinkier than the box art sometimes leads people to believe, but I think it's a pretty engaging experience. It's a lot of fun. The Renegade Games version is much more colorful, and I think it includes a little mini expansion module on there as well, but also a fifth player. So I like to pick this example one because I don't think Gravwell gets enough love. I just don't hear people talking about it. It's a good time. Uh, but also it is an example of like the need to change everything about the game because they had the rights for the design, but maybe didn't have the rights for the artwork, or the original files might not have existed. Maybe they were with Cryptozoic somewhere, lost in vaults. But it's cool to see this game come back with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, awesome. You've talked about this game a lot. I'm starting to wonder when we're gonna play it.
Well, let's see if it's on the list. It's probably on the list.
I'm sure. Also a 2021 edition. 2021 was a good year for reprints, for second editions, I should say.
I open the list and it is not on the list.
Oh boy.
It is
Well,
now.
let's get on that. Yeah, okay. Cool. Looks fun. Got to do it.
Yep, that is Gravwell. All right, Corey, you want to run us through the list?
Yep. My first pick was For the King and Me, then Kemet Blood and Sand and Great Western Trail second edition. Harrison picked Seven Wonders second edition, Kingsbird second and third edition, and Gravwell second edition.
Those are some good second/third editions.
Yep. And we can do an episode for third editions, and you can have Kingsbird appear on your list again. I can't think of too
Ooh,
many other games
ooh,
that have a third edition, but
yeah.
I'm sure they're out there.
All right, well, that's the end of another episode, Corey. We did it. We made it. We're here.
Yeah.
What have you been doing besides playing all those cool board games?
Oh, what have I been doing? Well, by the time this comes out, it'll be Monday, which means that the Brewers will have played the first game in the NLDS. That's the National League Divisional Series. Brewers have the best record in baseball going into the playoffs, and that is awesome to hear because they started the season off with a bunch of nobodies on their team. Everyone thinking, this team is just kind of the same old. But in this small market that is Milwaukee, it's like, how can these teams compete with the Mets and the Dodgers of the world, who are spending 3 times the amount on their teams? And yet the Brewers managed to do it. And in like, I think it's 7 of the last 8 seasons, they've been in the playoffs. So I am a lifelong Brewers fan. I've watched them lose terribly in the regular season for most of my life. But I've enjoyed the last decade or so of baseball where the Brewers get into the playoffs. They don't go very far in them. But I'm starting to think that this is our year, given that our favorite announcer, Bob Uecker, he's been with the team for he was decades. I mean, I think it was 50 years. He died last year, and this is kind of like the Bob Uecker redemption season. He would have loved to see the Brewers win a World Series. I think this is the year that they do it for Ueck. So that's the plan.
Every time someone steps up to the base, they're like, "This is for you, Bob."
Yeah, that's right. Let's see, was that right? Yeah, 54 seasons. Could you imagine doing anything for 54 years? That is a long time.
I will tell you in about 15 once I've had the opportunity.
Yeah, right. So, anyways, that's what I'm up to, and I'm looking forward to watching more postseason baseball from the best team on the planet. The power of friendship. That's what their motto is this year. The power of friendship.
Oh
How
boy,
about
that's
you?
not a winning motto at all.
Well, that's the joke. They're like, we don't have a bunch of like high budget, studs on our team, bunch of home run hitters. We're just a bunch of friends. So, power of friendship.
I don't have anything. I've just been playing so many board games.
Oh,
And I mean I've been playing. I mentioned last week that I was playing that incremental game, idle game Synergism. I kind of just went on a little mini incremental game spree.
mhm,
So you know about Cookie Clicker and those like games. There is a subset of these like really rapidly scaling numbers games. Um, that is somewhere like in the realm of a clicker slash incremental game, but they're not idle at all. They're very active, and
mhm.
you can usually beat them in like 3 to 4 hours. They're like a 1 to 2 sitting game max, and there's a handful of them on Steam that are just excellent, and you can get them for $3 or $4 a pop, and then that's what I've been doing. So if that is the sort of thing that you were interested in, if you like spending a couple bucks on Steam for an evening of just watching numbers get bigger and cool little mechanics, uh, I've been playing. Let's see, uh, in no particular order: Deep Space Cache, Keep on Mining, Pinata Go Boom, Lyca, Lyca, Tower Wizard, Node Buster, Digzeum, It's like a museum, but dig in the front of it.
Mhm, mhm.
And or where's the last one? I think it's just called Magic Archery. Yeah. So uh, I don't know if it's worth me putting those in the links in the show notes. It's just kind of a bunch of
Yeah, you
weird little games. They're all like less than $5 each. Um, just weird little games that you can play. Yeah, Magic Archery I beat, and I have 53 minutes on it, like as the playtime. So it, they're fun, tiny little games, and I just sometimes I like that break and watch a number get big.
mhm. Man, I didn't need to know that the Steam Autumn sale was going on. I just opened this up for no particular reason, and they've got Frosthaven on sale right now. That would be fun.
Oh snap! I would say if you pick any of those that I just mentioned, like to try out, I would say Digzeum or Nodebuster are probably like the strongest, like the best ones. Um,
Digzeum or Nodebuster?
Digzeum or Nodebuster, yeah. Um, those are probably like the more well received ones in the incremental idol space.
Okay.
Yeah,
Dig how do you spell Digzeum?
it's like museum except you dig. So
Oh,
Digseum.
Seum,
Yeah,
Digzeum.
we'll
Yeah,
put
okay,
them in we'll put those two in the show notes because this is ridiculous. This has gone on too long.
alright. Okay. Alright, cool. Well, on that, we'll have to close out, but I had an idea while we were talking about this, Harrison. We talked about second editions this week. There's a lot of second editions I'd like to see happen. Would you agree?
Mm, you know, I think I would. Yep,
Maybe
I
next
would.
week we make a list of the games that we'd like to see get a second edition.
Oh man, that's going to be a pretty open-ended list, Corey.
Yeah, it
You're pretty
is.
much giving us permission to talk about whatever we want.
Right, yeah, anything that doesn't already exist. So, I mean, do we
Okay.
extend this to include 3rd editions for games that just have a 2nd edition already?
No, that's ridiculous. That's the only qualifier. It can't already have a second edition.
Alright, fair. So, 2nd editions we'd like to
And
see.
or it can't have an announced second edition. I don't know. If we put too many restrictions on ourselves, then we'll just make fools of ourselves later on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, cool.
Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.
Bye. Adamantly Analog is Corey Murphy and Harrison Dunn. Original themes and bumper music by Corey Murphy. Reach us at adamantlyanalog@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.